and welcome to the webinar on creating regional level institutions for efficient and sustainable cross-border energy trade in South Asia. My name is Alok Brara. I'm publisher of Powerline magazine and will be moderating today's session. This webinar has been organized under the auspices of USAID SARI program, which is our South Asian Regional Initiative for Energy Integration, and hosted by RIDA, which is Integrated Research and Action for Development organization, and facilitated by Powerline. Welcome. And today's agenda is we'll begin with opening remarks by Mr. Pankaj Batra, who's project director. We'll then have a panel discussion from 3:05 to 4:15. The panel discussion will continue in the form of question and answer session till 4:30, and then between 4:30 and 4:40 we'll have remarks, concluding remarks and vote of thanks. So thank you again for joining us. Let me introduce Mr. Pankaj Batra, who will be delivering the welcome address. Mr. Batra is Project Director, South Asia Regional Initiative for Energy Integration at Integrated Research and Action for Development Organization, the IRADE. In his current role, he is responsible for spearheading the SARI-EI program and ensuring attainment of the objectives of promoting integration of energy systems and enhancing cross-border energy trade among the South Asian countries. Mr. Batra is a thought leader in the power industry in India, has about 3.5 decades of experience, and has held several key positions, including as chairperson and CEO of Central Electricity Authority of India. Mr. Batra, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Alok. And I welcome all our friends from South Asia. We've got very distinguished panelists in the panel discussion, which we are going to have. Which is Mr. Kulman Ghishing, who's the Managing Director of Nepal Electricity Authority, Mr. Muhammad Abdul Jalil, the Chairman of the Bangladesh Electricity Regulatory Commission, Mr. Damitha Kumarasinghe, Director General of the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka, Dr. Subir Sen, who's the Executive Director of Power Grid Corporation of India, Mr. Nima Shiring, Director of Bhutan Electricity Authority, and of course from ADB, Dr. Priyantha Vijayatunga, for discussing on this, I feel, a pretty important topic. This is on creation of regional level institutions for efficient and sustainable cross-border electricity trade in South Asia. I'm not sure if everyone has got, I couldn't see Mr. Kulman Ghishing. I hope he joins. Anyway, dear friends from the South Asian nations, welcome to this third webinar in the series of 4 webinars organized jointly by the SARI-EI program of USAID, which is South Asia Regional Initiative in Energy Integration program of USAID, for which IRADE is a partner. And Powerline, and it's jointly hosted by this as well as Powerline, the leading energy magazine in South Asia. This webinar is focused on creation of regional institutions for enabling sustainable trade in energy, specifically electricity in South Asia. The cross-border electricity trade is growing in leaps and bounds. It has doubled in the last 6 years from 9 billion units to 18 billion units in 2020-21 and continues to grow. All the South Asian nations are in principle in agreement that such a trade is beneficial to all nations, and this would help hasten the process of electricity access to all these nations, as well as reduce the average cost of supply. This in turn would result in growth of GDP in all the nations, as well as improve the comfort level of all citizens, leading to increased productivity. So even though Sri Lanka is not connected, they are actively thinking of connecting to the South Asian grid, which would lead to further optimization. IRADE, as the partner of USAID for the SARI program, has carried out a number of studies on institutionalization at various levels. At the field level, as Forum of Transmission Utilities, Forum of System Operators, Forum of Electricity Markets, which we have completed after carrying out stakeholder consultations with all the organizations, South Asian nation organizations who are represented here. These would be put up on the public domain shortly. We also carried out studies on institutionalization at other levels, which is at the parliamentary level, which study is also in the process of finalization. This was also completed after consultation with parliamentarians of all the South Asian countries. We are now conducting studies for dissemination of information at the grassroots level through think tank forums. I, of course, I missed it out, but I also welcome Monali Zaya Hazra from USAID, who's the key person who's running, who's involved with us at the for the SARI program. And I look forward to all the to the panel discussion to get your inputs and your thoughts on creation of regional institutions, because I think this is happening in all the regions of the world, where this provides a platform for arriving at a consensus, so that it's easy for the policymakers to take decisions and the regulators. So I welcome all of you. Thank you very much for joining, and hand over back to Alok Prara, who's the head of Powerline. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Batra. We are now ready for the panel discussion. I will just give a slightly more extended introduction to each of the panelists, and then we'll begin with the panel discussion. This is in alphabetic order. We will have with us, we don't have yet, but he'll be joining us soon, Mr. K.M. Gishing, who is Managing Director of Nepal Electricity Authority, has got about 2.5 decades of experience in power generation, transmission, distribution, and trading business, has also served as chairman of Chile Hydropower Company, and he has an executive MBA, also has a master's degree in power system engineering as well. We look forward to welcoming him later. Also with us, or will be joining us again in a few minutes, is, and he was earlier, is Mr. Muhammad Abdul Jalil, who is chairman of Bangladesh Electricity Regulatory Commission. Mr. Jalil was a civil servant and served in very important positions with the People's Republic of Bangladesh over 3 decades. And he's worked in different ministries and commissions and directories, etc. But the reason he's here today is he is chairman of Bangladesh Electricity Regulatory Commission. Mr. Damita Kumarasinghe is Director General of Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka. And he brings to bear many years of regulatory and management experience with PUCL and with the private sector as well. He has been director of board and board member of Sri Lanka Sustainable Energy Authority, also Condominium Management Authority of Sri Lanka, has degrees in electrical engineering and master's degree in engineering from New South Wales, etc. Welcome, Mr. Kumarasinghe. Also with us is Dr. Subir Sen, Executive Director of Power Corporation of India, has about 3 decades of experience in the field of power system planning and has contributed to great development of the national grid in India, and also has contributed to introduction of many new technologies. Welcome, Mr. Sen, Dr. Sen, I should say. Wonderful to see you again, sir. Also with us is Mr. Nima Sharing, who is Director of Bhutan Electricity Authority. Has been with BEA now for almost 9 years. He has been Chief of Licensing and Technical Division, and he oversaw all licensing aspects as well as development of technical regulations, codes, and standards. And he also served as an officiating CEO of BEA for almost a year. And his career began with the Department of Power and also the Department of Energy under the Ministry of Economic Affairs. And he too has a master's degree in engineering, energy policy, and planning, again from Australian University of Technology in Sydney. Finally, we have with us, we have with us Dr. Priyantha Vijayatunga, who is Chief of Energy Sector Group, Sustainable Development and Climate Change Development Department at Asian Development Bank. Has over 3 decades of experience, including 13 years at ADB. And before joining ADB, served as Founder Director General of Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka, and has also been Senior Professor of Electrical Engineering at the University of Moratuwa. He has a PhD as well in Power System Economics from Imperial College of London. He was also earlier chairman of the South Asia Forum for Infrastructure Regulators as well, commonly known as SAFIR. So we have a very, very eminent panel with us. And the questions we hope to answer are: what role can regional level institutions play in promoting efficient and sustainable cross-border energy trade? What should be their key objectives and responsibilities? What are the key issues and challenges? How can they be addressed? And what is the most effective financing mechanism for regional institutions? We are going to have roughly about, for the panel discussion part, roughly about 65 minutes or so. And I propose to put this into 3 groups or 3 rounds of discussion. The first one will just talk about the role they can play and what should be the objectives and responsibilities. And the second one will be issues and challenges. And the third one, we'll talk briefly about financing. So the first round can be about 20-25 minutes. The second round, similar, and then about 10-15 minutes for the last round. And then we'll take questions from the audience. To the audience, welcome. Please put your questions in Q&A or in chat, wherever you prefer. Q&A preferably. And send the questions as they occur to you. Don't wait for the end of the discussion. Otherwise, your questions may not make it. May not get selected. So send your questions as and when they occur to you. Put your comments in chat and questions in Q&A. And we are going to do alphabetic country-wise is what we're going to do. So the first question that I'm going to pose to people is, what role can regional level institutions play and what should be their objectives and responsibilities? Since Bangladesh has not joined yet, I am going first to Mr. Sharing of Bhutan. We're going to do alphabetic order, and as and when Bangladesh joins, we will make sure they are there. Mr. Sharing, to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Alok.
Sorry, one more thing. Yes, I know. I guess we'll do the photo op later after everyone is here. Yeah, please go ahead, sir. Mr. Sharing.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Alok Bara. Just to start the sessions of the panelists, I would like to put it this way. The regional level of institutions is now quite chronically required at this point of time. And looking at of course, we understand that the India stands in the middle, geographically, and has to pass through, and India has a dominance in terms of the power requirement as well as supply. Considering those kind of juxtapositions, I think the India has graciously opened its power market, especially through the exchange to various other nearby countries. So we are very grateful for that, and perhaps now the regional level institutions should as a first step to the journey of miles, we will have to now focus in bringing regional institutions towards that to open up first, and then to gradually get the confidence and move towards the overall long-term contracts and other markets. So therefore, the regional level of institutions, if we see how even the South African and Western African power pool have been developed, we will have to have now, my straight feeling is now directed, not trying to put a very broad aspects, but specific. I think our policy and the political to develop to gain the political will. Now our policymakers should now sit together at the highest level, and now the implementation should begin. Now, in terms of the South African, Western African, they have kind of a General Assembly committees, executive board committees for the regional. Now we should be now able to go kind of those committees and institutions, perhaps at the highest level, maybe like in the SAARC, the standing committees by the secretaries, maybe the ministers for the General Assembly, and then all the power integration issues now should be addressed and implemented. So this is how I try to view it, the immediate future, if we have to promote and sustain. Now, on the other aspects of if we were not ready, some of the countries, perhaps now, in order to convince and justify, we will have to now also have like the USAID, and then the consultant like IRD should now come with the adequate data and information to convince the respective governments and policymakers how the integration should be. Now, yes, we have done so far about the study about the possibility of the integratability through in the form of transmissions, in the form of having generation of this megawatt, in the form of loads of this kind of demand in different countries, the seasonal, the dynamic changes in the demand, and then the power requirement. These are there for a long time now, and then has been evolving. but we need perhaps now that a very, very, very scrutinizing data, a very detailed data to convince our policymakers and to forward the political will. Therefore, I think while as a milestone, first step to milestone, to just to repeat what I've been saying, I think that we should start with the Indian power exchange, which is 10% just now, or if I'm not wrong. So now Bhutan is there now, going to be there, and then the Bangladesh is already there. So now we'll have to chip in the power in that power exchange market, take out and expand, and then give a confidence over a few years, and then like grow vis-a-vis when we try to establish those kind of institutions that I was mentioning in the earlier statement. So our objective, of course, the objective and the responsibilities of the various countries should be now forthcoming. Simply just trying to get this the excuses that we have been getting for the last 2 decades. I think that would not be correct for us, as Mr. The Pankaj Patra has mentioned. IIT has done quite a lot of studies. The volumes of the transactions in terms of the regional and bilateral markets are quite encouraging. But we have a lot more to do, a lot more to achieve. The 2 decades has been too long for us. So on the broad scale, Mr. Alok, I would like to keep it at this point of time, at this point, and then maybe return if I have to. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharing. And welcome, Mr. Jalil. Sir, I did introduce you at the beginning of the discussion, and we were going to begin with you, Bangladesh being the...
Thank you, Mr. Alok. I'm really sorry I could not connect my device for
No
few
issues. Mr. Jalil,
minutes.
Mr. Jalil, so what we are doing is we are splitting the discussion into 3 parts. First part is going to be about roles, responsibilities, and objectives of the regulatory institutions. And then we will go to issues and challenges. And last one, briefly, we'll talk about financing. So Mr. Jalil, if I can request you now to share with us your perspective on the responsibilities, role, and objective of such institutions.
Thank you, Mr. Alok, and distinguished participants. I welcome you all. From Bangladesh standpoint, an effective CBET in South Asia is very much needed and very much useful for us. We agree with this point, I think, all of us, we agree. But what today's issue, creating regional level institutions for efficient and sustainable CBT. Creating regional level, we have our regional forum for regulators, SAFIR. You know very well, but if we want to create another 2 or 3 regional level institutions, but how? This is my question. From my side, I believe if we want to create 2 or 3 more regional level forums or institutions, then it needs government approval first. This is the condition. But my opinion is not sufficient to create some institutions other than SAFIR. Now, if we want to create another institutions, what you have proposed, maybe regulatory forum or utility forum, etc., then approval of the government is needed. It is my first opinion. Then, if government agrees to create such kind of forums for the region, then we come to its objective. What will be the objective? What should be the objective? In that case, my opinion is that objective should be to make a favorable atmosphere to enhance or foster CBT on various levels of trade to harmonize the policy decisions, codes and standards, transmission planning, and enhance a secured CBT in South Asia. This should be the objective, shortly, briefly.
Thank you.
Then we can talk about the role with if we think about the role, first, I think from my point, to prepare a mechanism for determining various charges, like transmission charges, tax, BETs, etc. Then to develop a standard documents for bidding, or that means common documents, standard documents for bidding and agreements. Then to arrange some dialogue or policy level meetings or seminar or workshop on policy issues, sharing best practices and knowledge sharing. Then we have to develop principles for cost minimization, clean energy enhancement, energy and power system security, etc. Also, the rule should be identify barriers and opportunities also to prepare an efficient dispute resolution mechanism. This kind of activities may be the role of the proposed institutions. This is the role. Present situation, we know, everyone we know about the present situation of CBT of South Asia. I think it should not be discussed thoroughly. Now Bangladesh is importing from India about 1,600 more, some more megawatts, and another 32 megawatts we are importing from India, from Tripura side. So it will be 192 in 2022 in place of 160 megawatt. Also Nepal, Bhutan also engaged with India for trading electricity. And we have also 2 new MOUs with India, Bhutan, and Nepal. One tripartite, one bilateral. You know it very well. So from my side, I have discussed about the role and objectives.
Thank you, sir.
And present experience, it is known to all.
Right.
So
Thank you.
only one thing, necessity of institutions, we agree, but to create such kind of forums or institutions, we need approval of the governments of the member countries. It is my opinion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jalil.
Thank you.
Mr. Kumar Singh, sir, your perspective on roles, responsibilities, objectives of regulatory institutions needed to encourage and promote cross-border energy trade. Mr. Kumar Singh. Sir, you are muted, Mr. Kumar Singh.
I think, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you now. Yes, sir.
I have unmuted myself.
Yeah, we can hear you now, sir.
Yeah. Good afternoon. Thanks for the good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity given. Now, as far as the South Asia is concerned, we are the home for 25% of the world population. So whatever the arrangements in electricity trade will benefit 25% of the world population. So it is a very large market, and India has the largest population in these countries. So I think first we need to decide on the model of the cross-border electricity trade in the region, whether it's multilateral trade model or a unified model like Nord Pool, or a multilateral model like the South African pool. So I think once that is decided and move forward, then the roles of the institutions, the local institutions as well as the regional institutions would be determined. So depending on the market structure, the roles played by the institutions will differ. Further, I think we need to have the political institution in all countries to formulate the enabling of the integration of the system. Then the regulatory institutions, local as well as the regional regulatory institutions, playing their role in regulating the markets depending on the model that we are going to adopt in time to come. So I think as far as Sri Lanka is concerned, we are not yet connected to any country for electricity trade. India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, all those countries at least have one or few connections to other countries. So Sri Lanka is still out of this grid, and the Sri Lanka-India interconnection, the pre-feasibility studies are done, and I think the governments are in the discussion right now to go ahead with the Sri Lanka-India interconnection, which we would like to see coming into light very soon. So with that, I think it is very important for the South Asian countries to determine the trading arrangements, the market structures for the South Asia pool, as well as determining the regional institutional framework and the scope for such institutions very soon if we are to move forward in this. And as Mr. Batra said, the interparliamentary committees and all those other political institutions are in the discussion now. So no sooner those things are finalized, I hope we can move forward, and Sri Lanka also can be connected into the South Asian grid. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kumarasinghe. If I can go to Dr. Sen now. Dr. Sen, your perspective on roles, responsibilities, objectives for regional level regulatory institutions that could promote efficient and sustainable cross-border energy trade. Dr. Sen?
Yeah, first of all, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Parar, and our all dignitaries and respected panelists for this today's discussion. So it is a well-known fact that the regional interconnections have a lot of benefits, and especially in the South Asian region, there are interconnections already existing with the 4 countries along with the India, but this exchange or the power transfer is happening through the bilateral mode only as of today. And there are many inter-country, that is a cross-border links, are under construction to upgrade or strengthen the cross-country power transfer capacity. So presently we have with India around 4,200 megawatt transfer capacity links are there between India, Bangladesh, India, Bhutan, and India, Nepal, and small link between India and Myanmar. And the link between India and Nepal is also getting strengthened. Similarly, there is a proposal for further augment the cross-border link capacity between India and Bangladesh, as well as India Bhutan links are also getting strengthened. There is a link already, our previous panelist highlighted that between India and Sri Lanka, that is under the discussion stage between both the countries' government. So there is no doubt that to facilitate economy in operation, as well as to ensure that future demand, which are growing in all the countries in this region. So we have to meet the resource adequacy. We have to ensure that, as well as address the two major issues like environmental concerns as well as the climate change. And everybody is now focusing towards capacity addition through the non-fossil fuel like solar, wind, as well as the hydro. So under that circumstances, because since one country is not endowed with that much potential, so other country maybe, and if this kind of non-fossil fuel capacity is to be integrated and to ensure that the grid frequency voltage remain within the permissible band as defined in the respective grid code of the respective countries. So the interconnection is a beneficial aspect. So cross-border interconnection is essential. So in this direction, already in India, we have the cross-border regulation, cross-border trade of electricity regulation, so 2019. And that regulation envisage not only the bilateral trade, also that multilateral trade. So that provision is there, and there is a power transfer through the exchange, so that is happening. So now the major objective, if the institutions are required, so everybody is agreeing that this kind of institutions will require, which will basically coordinate the activities towards establishment of cross-border transmission interconnections, so that at a single point we'll get all these informations, because to establish the cross-border interconnections, many aspects need to be deliberated, be it the technical aspects, be it the operational aspects, be it regulatory or legal aspects, or the commercial, as well as the what kind of institutional mechanism. So these aspects, so we can deliberate upon, and the focus way that institutions can carry out that activity. So that will be the basic objective. If we agree that these kind of institutions will be required to make a coordinated effort, so that a unified approach can be adopted, and this will accelerate the development as well as the strengthening of the cross-border interconnections to facilitate, which we are talking is that one sun, one world, one grid in this direction. So this is the main point from our side as of now.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sen. If I can go to Dr. Vijayatunga now. Dr. Vijayatunga, if you can give us sort of a regional ADB consultant perspective here. What is your view on what kind of institutions we need? What should be their roles? What should be their responsibilities? Dr. Vijayatunga, please.
Yeah, thank you, Alok. It's a great question. To start with, let me thank our organizers for inviting me in. As for the regional institutions, of course, as my previous speakers quite well outlined, we have several regional institutions in South Asia. If you look at, you have regulators institutions, you have more formal SAARC and SASEC and BIMSTEC and all sorts of regional institutions. So let's see what their roles should be. And in fact, if you look at these regional institutions very carefully, these regional institutions bring together the stakeholders, the relevant stakeholders in the region. So it has a very important role to play in that sense, because without these regional institutions, there is no forum to bring these actors together. It can be in the form of policymakers, it can be in the financiers, it can be the regulators, it can be at the working level. For instance, if you have, I don't know whether you can ever remember, at one point, Asian Development Bank was supporting, Transmission Utilities Forum. In fact, we had several meetings and to bring together the transmission utilities, which are in fact, the most important utilities in terms of cross-border, trade, because they are the asset owners. So these institutions have a very important role to play to bring together these stakeholders and for them to be provided a stage or a forum to discuss issues and resolve issues. And of course, you need regional institutions like SARC and BIMSTEC and so on at a higher level when it comes to the decision making at the political level. Political process needs to follow. And then you have below that, of course, the regulators and then the utility providers and so on and so forth. So every regional institution has a role to play, provided that they play that role well. I'm sure it's going to help cross-border energy trade very, very much. One good example is not because I am coming from ADB, I'm just trying to quote SASEC, South Asia Sub-Regional Economic Cooperation, which is where ADB is acting as the secretariat. Now, this institution supports not only just regional energy trade, but also other regional initiatives like transport and customs and so on and so forth. This institution works quite well, and that provides a forum for all these SASEC countries to come together and discuss if there are any issues, how to overcome those issues, whether it can be regulatory or it can be technical, it can be at policy level. For instance, if I take one example, under this we have what we call Power Trade Working Group, and under that Power Trade Working Group, at one point we were discussing the cross-border energy trade guidelines issued by India, and how the neighboring countries look at it, and there were certain expressions, certain ideas expressed and reactions and so on, and that helped the revision of the power trade guidelines at one point or the other to accommodate some of these views. So these are very important. So all these regional institutions, whether at the highest level or at more working level, all these institutions have a very important role to play in terms of bringing the stakeholders together and resolve issues if you have any, and then overcome and improve cross-border regional trade. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the next round of questions, which is going to discuss as to what are the key issues and challenges, how can they be addressed, especially in the light of different kinds of recommendations that we've heard about regulatory institutions. For example, one of you has said that perhaps we can just work under the Power Exchange and just go forward with it. Another one has talked about SAFIR and the difficulty of having new institutions, and yet someone else has said that we need new institutions with maybe a broader scope and broader responsibilities. So we sort of have that as a context, and then my question is going to be, what are going to be key issues and challenges, and maybe which kind of institution would be best suited and would also be realistically would be a realistic solution. So I'm going to last time we began with Mr. Shering, and this time I'm going to begin with Mr. Jalil. Mr. Jalil, what is your view on this, sir? Mr. Jalil, you are muted.
Thank you, Mr. Alok. Regarding key issues and challenges, it is known to us, though we are discussing today. First, whatever I would like to say, for creating this type of institution, again I am repeating, consent of the government of the member countries is a prerequisite. This is a challenge, first. Then our infrastructure, mainly grid infrastructure. Then a transparent CBET framework. This is a challenge. Then market mechanism, such as access to connectivity, scheduling, accounting, metering, etc. It is a challenge. Then legal and uniform framework, common guidance for system, operation pricing, and for cross-border transaction, tax duties, etc. Standard and efficient and fair dispute resolution framework. Very important. It is also, important challenge for all the regional countries. Then standard and harmonized bid agreement and other related documents. Financing, cross-border lines and others. This is a challenge. In short, I have mentioned the important challenges from my viewpoint. And if we able to form the institutions, proposed institutions, then our opportunity is there to overcome the challenges. And these are, first, we need to make some agreement like or treaty or pact, regional treaty, or maybe regional pact, etc., etc. Then risk mitigating measures and options may be developed, introduced, standardized, and harmonized for all the member countries. Enhanced regional cooperation, that is close cooperation and syncing among participant countries. Country-specific action is needed also. Then we can harmonize all that. These few measures or actions we may introduce initially for an efficient and transparent CBT.
Thank you, Mr.
Regarding financing, my member, Power, Mr. Bozdur Rahman, also connected with me. If you allow, I would like to request him to speak few words regarding financing, if you allow.
Okay, he can do that.
Mr. Bozdur Rahman, you may speak.
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Bozdur Rahman. Hello. Sorry, hello.
Yeah. Iqbal, has he joined as an attendee perhaps?
I'm checking
Hello.
that.
আমি তো আপনাকে লাইন দিলাম এখন কথা বলার জন্য। আপনি রেজাকে ডাক দেন। Mr. Bozdur Rahman will attend after 3 minutes. Okay. Mr. Olok, my member will attend within few minutes.
That's fine. Okay. And Iqbal, you can connect with them.
I have upgraded him, Mr. Rahman.
Okay, Mr. Rahman. Mr. Rahman, you are there if you'd like to speak right now. Mr. Rahman, you're now a panelist, sir.
Mr. Bozdur Rahman, do you hear me?
Okay, Mr. Rahman, Iqbal, if you can just connect with him and send him a message.
Yeah.
Huh? Okay.
Yes.
Let me go to Mr. Sharing. Mr. Sharing, key issues and challenges as far as you see.
Thank you, Mr. Alok. Straight into the point, as you were mentioning on the analysis aspects of the different scenarios that could either through the institution like Safir could be taken up, or from the market kind of ideas could be taken up. I would always like to stress on the principal issues that we have been receiving the challenges in terms of the principal aspect. Now, looking around the world, most of the markets, most of the power pool and regional power market have been elevated and successful because they have been depolitized, because the economic and the sovereign issues are not being compromised. So if you look at it very rigidly, solidly, concretely, and then try to see that from those aspects, our region being in a much of a politicized area, we should be strategic, contemporary, and responsive. So therefore, my request also to the USAID and all those aspects should be now very strategic. The objectives are clear. I would not like to mention here. Objectives are clear. Challenges and issues are being identified by the various consultants and the experts and institutions that have been working for the last 2 decades. We would not like to mention those aspects, but the strategy needs to be now revisited, revamped, and need a paradigm shift on that, principally speaking. So so I would not like to, with much apology, I would not like to dwell much on the objectives and responsibilities and those aspects, but definitely what I have as a conceptual challenges that we have found is that we need to, as much as possible, depolitize the regional market integration, first in a smaller way, and then grow into a bigger until we gain the confidence and the stability. Thank you, Mr. Alopar.
Thank you very much. Before I go to the next panelist, Mr. Rahman, if you can hear your point of view on the financing now, Mr. Bazlur Rahman. Yes. Sir, we can't hear you. We can see you. You're not muted, so I don't know why we're not able to hear you. Okay, we're not able to hear you, sir.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Great.
Sorry.
Thank you. I think one of the main challenges in setting up the regional markets is the need to improve the cross-border coordination. So for that, we need to set up the institutions nationally as well as the regional institutions. So setting up these institutions and allocating the responsibilities and developing the required robust legal framework is a huge challenge as far as this cross-border trade is concerned. So I think first we need to ensure that these institutions are set up and the legal frames are in place. So this is a huge challenge as far as this cross-border trade is concerned. And the other thing is that once these are set up, it's a huge challenge to allocate the benefits across the market participants. So if you take this as a multilateral or unified market in the region, then it's a challenge to determine the allocation of benefits over the market participants, as well as the allocation of investment costs and operational costs. Those things needs to be determined. For countries like Sri Lanka, now we are not connected to any other part of the world in the electricity grid. So currently our pricing mechanisms, all those other aspects are administratively determined. So then once the markets are set up, we need to move from that to more market-based pricing, more market-based procurement systems, and most of the internal systems needs to be changed. So that even the institutional structures. So those things are very much challenging given the time frame and the participants involved. Those are the main challenges I see in setting up this regional market for electricity in the South Asian region.
Thank you. Let's try Mr. Bazlur Rahman again and see if we are able to hear him this time. Mr. Rahman, your view on financing, I think you have. Mr. Rahman, can we try this one more time, sir? If you can unmute yourself, yes. Yes, sir, go ahead. You are unmuted, but let's see if we can hear you. Yeah, sir, we are not able to hear you. So I think it has to do something perhaps with you're not connecting through the audio system in the computer.
Mr. Bazlur Rahman, you are not audible. Please check your device again.
Yeah. Sir, maybe you're not connected.
No.
Yeah. Mr. Rahman, if you can send us your number, I can call you and guide. Oh yeah, let's see without headphone if it works.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now perfectly, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, okay, thank you. What Honorable Chairman asked me to tell about the financing. Financing is a broad issue. If we consider the financing, the institution, what we are thinking about to build, the operation of the institution, the financing mechanism, it could be the participation of fees of individual countries, the participating countries, and it could be the quantum of energy the participating countries mutually transferred or mutually transmitted. There could be some fees on the quantum of energy transmitted. This
Okay.
for operation of the this is only for the operation of the institution for operation what we are thinking about.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. If I can now go to Dr. Sen, but before I do that, if I can ask all the panelists, if you can just turn on your video just for 1 minute, so our social media marketing person can take a photograph or take a screenshot before I go to Dr. Sen. Mr. Kumarasinghe, if you could turn on your video as well. Mr. Kumarasinghe. Dr. Jyoti Parekh and Ms. Bardhan and Mr. Agarwal. Mr. Kumarasinghe, if you can turn on your video as well. Okay.
Dr.
I have
Parekh
turned it
also.
on. Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, and Dr. Parekh, no, Dr. Parekh is there. Dr. Kirith Parekh is there. Dr. Jyoti Parekh is not there. Okay, she's there now. Okay, no, Dr. Parekh is still not there. Okay, I think Mr. Kumarasinghe, you were coming through clear earlier. If you can turn on your video, although I think there's possibly a bandwidth issue there if I can see the little triangle. But I know we were able to see you earlier quite well.
Is it okay now?
Mr. Kumarasinghe, no, it's not okay. We're not able to hear you. I mean, we're able to hear you, but not see you.
Now?
Yeah, let's. No, sir, we are able to not hear you. I mean, we're able to hear you, but not see you. Let's see. Earlier, we were able to see you very
on
well.
from this end.
It's on. Probably is a bandwidth issue, perhaps.
Yes,
Iqbal, do you have a solution to this?
yes.
It's something, I
Okay.
think that icon is not showing. Maybe you can try resetting the, yeah.
You could try
it's
video
back.
on and off.
Yeah.
Don't log out, just try video on and off. As in stop video, turn it on, it should probably come back on. Iqbal, can you do that for him? From
Now?
where you are? No, we're not able. I guess we can take a shot from him from early on, right? We had a shot from earlier, right? Iqbal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
I think
we
we will,
have.
yes, I think we'll take the shot as is, and then we'll be able to get a picture of his from earlier on. I know we were able to get that. Okay, thank you so very much. Okay, now let me go to Dr. Sen now. Dr. Sen, your view on issues and challenges, and how this would work going forward.
Yeah, actually, our previous all these panelists, they have highlighted the issues. Basically, in our opinion,
can I stop you? If I can stop, if I can ask Mr. Kumarasinghe, we just had you again for a minute. If you can turn on your video, Mr. Kumarasinghe, we'll just try it one more time. All of you, if I request you all to turn on your video, because we did have Mr. Kumarasinghe just now. Yes, now he's there. Mr. Batra, Mr. Sharing. Perfect. I think Ms. Bardhan, you can turn on your video as well. But okay, we got Mr. Everyone again. Great. Thank you so wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, great. Yes, Dr. Sen, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so if you see that once we have to develop or augment the cross-border interconnections capacity. So basically the 5 issues that needs to be addressed. These are the challenges we can say. These are the technical areas that once we will go, the first, what will be the type of the link, whether it will be a synchronous, whether it will be asynchronous, whether it will be a radial. So that needs to be addressed. Then comes the operational, that it is not only the operation of the asset, It is also operation of the grid, including the cross-border transaction also. So how to do this in a harmonized manner, coordinated manner, because it needs not only the scheduling, dispatch, energy accounting, metering, etc., but also it needs the areas like ancillary services. It needs to be seen from the deviation settlement. Everything is to be done in a harmonized manner, in a coordinated manner, even the protection philosophy also. So those are the things need to be addressed. Then comes the pricing mechanism, that is the commercial aspect. Also the legal, regulatory, the dispute resolution, everything will come under that. And finally, the institutional mechanisms, which we are talking also today. So these 4-5 aspects, these are the challenges once we have to establish the cross-border interconnection or going to upgrade or strengthen or augment the existing interconnection so that the more power transfer can happen, and it may be a multilateral, it may be a bilateral, it may be the bi-directional also from time to time. So those are the various challenges that needs to be addressed, and these kind of specific institutions may well coordinate all these activities to basically accelerate the establishment of the cross-border interconnections, which are very essential part, and this is going to happen in the near future also, and this is very much required if we have to really bring efficiency and economy, and not last but not least is the sustainability, be it in the financial sustainability, be it in the physical sustainability, be it in the environmental sustainability. So I will stop here regarding this part.
Thank you. Dr. Vijayatanga, if I can come to you, your view on big challenges and issues, and then I'll also ask you for your point of view on the financing, as well as, do we need a new forum or do we go with exchange and the Safir? So those 3 different questions for you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Alok. And I don't want to repeat what others have said. Actually, I fully agree. When it comes to the challenges, it's important that we address those challenges. To address that, actually, most of the time, of course, again, more technical, people always talk about the cross-border infrastructure. But we have to remember that for the cross-border flows to happen, you need to have in-country networks properly strengthened. So we have to concentrate on that also. Obviously, India has a pretty good, strong network, throughout the country now. But it may not be the case in all the other neighboring countries if you want to have cross-border energy trade. For instance, we have been supporting from ADB side, Nepal Electricity Authority to strengthen their transmission network so that they can evacuate power from the generating stations towards the border. So that's very important. And it's the same with Bangladesh, whether to evacuate power or send power across, export power. And that's something what we need to really ensure. Even if it is Sri Lanka-India interconnection, for instance, we need to strengthen the country network so that the power flows can be, evacuated from the point of connection. And that's very important. Of course, the other challenges have been already mentioned. And the most important challenge is actually the will of the people. It's important that when it comes to these professionals in each of these stakeholder groups, there should be a will to do it. And that will have to come, and that we have to overcome. And so I leave it at that. When it comes to challenges we have to overcome, of course, all these regional institutions have a role to play to overcome those challenges. And when it comes to financing, considering that the regional institutions will have to have financing, unbiased financing in that sense, so that they can deliver for everybody in the region, everybody in that sense. From that viewpoint, I think all the member countries, eventually these institutions are made of the countries or the individual countries' institutions. Those institutions will have to, pay a membership fee, like SAFI, for instance, and the regional institution should sustain from those funding. And on top of that, of course, development finance institutions like Asian Development Bank or the World Bank or other multilateral banks can come in to support, let's say, capacity development activities. I can remember when I was running the SAFIR, we had a lot of support from the World Bank. And we have been supporting as ADB most of these regional institutions from time to time. So I think financing will have to come more from neutral sources like all in membership, or maybe from international financing institutions. I stop at that. Thank you, Alok.
Thank you. Mr. K.M. Gishing has now joined us. Welcome, Mr. Gishing. I have already introduced you earlier. I would now like you to request you to share your perspective on, roles and responsibilities and objectives that regional level institutions could have in trying to promote the efficient and sustainable cross-border energy trade. What are your thoughts on that, and what do you see as key issues and challenges? I've already asked the other panelists all this, and perhaps can address these issues in the next 5-7 minutes session. Mr. Gishing, please.
Hello.
Yes, sir. We can hear you fine, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. All distinguished participants. Mr. Priyanta, just now I heard. Sorry for late joining. It was miscommunicated to me. I think I didn't know that the 3 o'clock is the time for this.
It doesn't matter, sir. We're very happy that you're able to join us. We're very happy you're able to join us, sir. We're eager to hear your perspective.
Cross-border energy trade and energy security for South Asia. I think this is a very pertinent issue, now becoming very high priority for South Asia. Nepal is also trying to export in energy, at least in wet season. This year, I think we have almost spilled around 500 to 600 megawatt of hydropower energy in wet season for last 4 to 5 months. So now we are becoming energy surplus country. So this energy trading, cross-border energy trading, is very important for this region. Being a regional cross-border trading, I think bilateral trading is becoming the first priority that we have to look into it. Bilateral institutions and bilateral trading between Nepal and India. And then we can go beyond bilateral, that is trilateral or quadrilateral. So the institutions in South Asia have to look into the cross-border trading, how we can promote cross-border trading. I think the most important part in this region, just like SARI and other institutions from long back, they are working hard to realize this cross-border trading. Much more things are happening, but the important thing is now how the geopolitical context runs. Whether that institutions are efficient or not, I think institutions' capability to intervene in geopolitical context is also very important, not only financing. So this is very, very important aspect in this regional cross-border trading. So I think political context and this region may affect the cross-border trading. So the multinational companies and multinational institutions and regional institutions, if they can explore benefits for the concerned countries, how we can benefit use of hydropower and energy exchange and this clean energy, then we can develop this energy market. Market mechanism, developing a market mechanism and going through that mechanism is very important. Though in a small quantity, Nepal is now exporting some electricity to India in exchange market. 39 megawatt from last 2 months. It is a very encouraging milestone that I think should be increased in the coming years. And we are also participating in import in the power exchange market. This is power exchange market participation in importing and exporting the electricity. This is, I think, first time in Nepal-India cross-border trading. So short-term tradings are there between Nepal and India. And long-term trading, we are trying to get into the long-term market also. That I think the government of both the countries, political leadership will also have this agenda for the coming years. And the institutions like regional institutions within this region, they have to take this agenda to concerned countries. This is now high time to make this cross-border electricity trade be efficiently and without border trade can happen. There is many cross-border transmission line that can be utilized for cross-border trading between Nepal, India, and Nepal, Bangladesh. Maybe cross-border line infrastructure is there. Now, next coming infrastructures, second cross-border transmission lines are under implementation phase. Many other projects are under pipelines. I think other projects, many projects are dedicated for export in Nepal. Satlas is going to complete 900 megawatt project in Nepal in next 1.5 years. That will power from Nepal to India. That is also becoming a milestone. So I think it is going in right track, but we have to make this cross-border trading more efficient, more reliable, and more competitive. And without border, it should flow. Let's hope in future all energy from Nepal, hydropower, clean energy can be traded to Indian market and even beyond that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Gishing, if I can ask you one question, sir. Do we need a new institution, and what kind of institution should it be? For example, the other panelist, one of them mentioned earlier that maybe SAFIR can do the job. Another one said maybe India Power Exchange can do it. And then somebody else said we need an entirely new institution with defined scope, a redefined scope and responsibilities. What is your view, sir?
I think if make a regional institutions, the regional institutions, governing institutions,
okay,
who can control this individual countries' institutions, and I think that will work. And power exchange, I think power exchange is one entity that unless we don't have any permission from government of India,
right?
We cannot go to the power exchange. ultimately we have to take all the permission from Government of India. Our
Right.
ministry, and that is reflected from the
So you're in
institutions.
favor of a new institution.
Huh?
Are you in favor of a new institution, therefore?
If this umbrella organization are like regional institution can handle,
Okay.
but
Alright,
but it is very difficult to get that type of institution. But in my perspective, that is in India is at the pivotal role until and unless Indian institutions are proactive. Indian institutions in a hierarchy, there are many institutions. If until and unless those institutions and these ministries, line ministries, they are proactive enough to export and import of electricity within these countries, I think it will be very difficult in coming future.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Kishing. Greatly appreciate your thoughts, sir. If I can ask the same question of the other panelists as well, just I know that some of you have discussed it, not others, but just for clarity's sake, Mr. Sharing, again, sir, do we need a new institution? Do we not need a new institution? And if we need a new institution, what should its scope be? What should it cover and what should it not cover?
Thank you, sir. The new institutions would be required, looking at the way that we have been functioning for the last decade, that the rigorosity was far lacking. As I was mentioning in my first the remarks, the institutions could be as high as where the ministers could be involved and the implementing strategy, particularly for the energy integrations, such as in the WAP, the Western African Power Pool, they have the General Assembly. So the set of the ministers could be there, or for that matter, the prime ministers, where they will implement directly for the regional integrations and power market, and look on a very envisioning basis. And then below that could be some of the institutions such as that just now we have in the standing committees, the secretaries, similar to the secretaries of the power power sectors could be the executive board. And then there will be also the organizing and implementing committees vis-a-vis with the transmission cross borders, with this data informations and all those aspects. Unless we are really into it, our implementations would be far slackened again. So my overall broad principles is that we need institutions, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jalil, same question for you, sir. Mr. Jalil, do we need a new institution and what should be the scope of that?
Do you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ollo, from the very beginning, I am uttering two lines which were saying, but in conclusion, I would like to say, under the new situation, some institutions or forums is necessary, but from my point of view, if South Asia requires these new type of institutions or forums, this can be done by keeping SAFIR as the umbrella institution.
Okay,
that
great.
is my opinion.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Sen, what is your point of view? Do we need a new institution? Do we not need a new institution? Dr. Sen?
Yeah, obviously, since we have to really focus upon the interconnections, strengthen the interconnections, as our previous speakers also highlighted, that not only the interconnection between the two countries, also backward and onward transmission infrastructure within that country also. So that for that purpose, really we need a focused type of institutions, obviously with the approval of the respective governments are essential. But what will be the modalities and all these things, so that can be further deliberated upon. But obviously, these kind of institutions at the regional level will help to accelerate the power exchange and the facility of the power transfer. from one part of the region to the another, and that will bring the economy and efficiency in the operation of the complete region.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Kumarasinghe, if I can come to you, I know that you earlier mentioned the institution will depend on the market structure, but if you can give us your recommendation on this, Mr. Kumarasinghe. Mr. Kumarasinghe, you're muted, sir. Mr. Kumarasinghe, you have to unmute yourself. Mr. Kumarasinghe, you have to unmute yourself, sir. Okay. Meanwhile, we will go to then Dr. Vijayatunga. Dr. Vijayatunga, you already talked about what ADB has done. You talked about Transport Utility Forum. You also
Yes.
Yeah,
Hello.
sorry, Mr. Kumarasinghe, are you?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I was
if
mentioning.
You look at it required, I think. Can you hear me? Yes. Actually, we need
Yes, sir, we can hear
institution
you.
to set up the regional initially, we need institutions to promote and develop the regional cross-border trading platforms and the markets, and getting the consensus from all the governments. So SAFIR can be one of those institutions. But once the market is set up, South Asian cross-border trade market is set up, then we further need institutions to regulate the market and run the market. So those institutions could be different to what we need for setting up of this cross-border energy trade.
Thank you. Dr. Vijayatunga, if I can come to you now, sir. As I mentioned earlier on, you had talked about Utilities Forum that ADB has supported, as well as, so what would be your recommendation for our region as to what kind of institution we should have?
Yeah, Alok, my view is slightly different because I think I always feel that we have enough regional institutions to work with. Probably they may not have been empowered enough. So these regional institutions can grow into what we really need to do within the region. As I said, eventually, the sovereign governments will have to take a call on certain actions, the decisions. So you have to go back to the sovereign government. So as far as the other things are concerned, we have institutions like for regulation, we have regulatory institutions of SAFI, and then you have, you can always, reactivate some of these fora and work with the existing regional institutions. But eventually they have to grow into the needs of the region. That can happen as the time goes by, and the sovereign governments can empower them. So that's the way I would like to look at it. Thank you.
Okay. We are going to take some questions from the audience now. And the first question I'll take up is from Mr. Dinesh Dulal. And he says Nepal has a cross-border link with India, but is struggling to export its clean energy at a time when the world is struggling to reduce fossil fuel consumption. How can this issue be overcome so that Nepal has an easy access to cross-border market? The recent development is not helping Nepal to increase its clean energy production because of non-availability of market, even though it lies between two of the world's hungriest energy-hungry countries. So I will just get a point of view of this from both Mr. Gishing as well as Dr. Sen. Mr. Gishing, to you first. Any response to this gentleman's question, sir? Mr. Gishing?
Yes, sir. We are trying to export our clean energy
Right.
to India and beyond. But the institutions like Power Exchange market, we got clearance for 2 projects, very minimum quantity, around 39 megawatt. We are exporting it. And we're trying to get clearance for the projects also. For Tamakosi, the 456 megawatt, we single project we commissioned just now. Now our total project commission projects is more than 2,000 megawatt, and projects within 1 year, additional 1,000 megawatt will be added to the system, and every year 1,000 megawatt
Okay.
share onwards. So ultimately, the clean energy from Nepal has to be exported to India and beyond. We have to get clearances, and we have submitted our proposal to Ministry of Power India. They are looking into it. It is under consideration. I think we hope very soon those projects will be cleared. And
okay. And Mr. Gishing, what about Nepalese producers being able to join India Power Exchange? Are they able to do that? Not able to do that?
I think our policy doesn't restrict that they can join, but
okay.
the exchange market to join to the exchange market, they have to build their power plant as a this merchandise plant. It is very difficult without PPA. They have done PPA with Nepal Electricity Authority only. Then they have
okay. So that's a big issue. Yeah.
So that will be difficult.
Okay, that's a big issue. The next question is from N. Musafar, and he wants to know. Actually, the answer is pretty obvious, but I'll repeat the question. How best can CBET contribute towards South Asia region prospering while aiming at decarbonization, a net zero world, and say by 2050? Dr. Sen, I'll refer the question to you because you talked about that as sort of a reason for promoting cross-border energy trade. How will it help towards decarbonization, sir? Dr. Sen?
Yeah, obviously, once we go for the more and more regional interconnections, along with the augmentation of the network within that respective countries, this will facilitate transfer of non-fossil fuel capacity power, and also facilitate the grid to operate in a more stable fashion, sharing of the common reserves. Yeah. Even we are talking about the energy storage, so that maybe that energy storage requirement may be reduced. So that will really give a benefit for the region as a whole. So they will be benefited both in terms of the meeting the growing electricity demand through the more and more clean energy resources, and that will be step forward towards the decarbonization. And already the enabling regulatory frameworks are in place as far as the trading, exchanging, everything is concerned with the India, and even the bilateral and the multilateral mode. So obviously it will be an enabler for moving towards the decarbonization part.
Okay, all right. The next question I will take from the audience. It says from N. Musafar again, while a regional institution for CBET, whether standalone or as a part of a larger regional institution, can help resolve institutional challenges, how can such an institution resolve political, technical, financial, and regulatory challenges? Dr. Vijayatunga, I'm going to refer this question to you, sir.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, as I said, eventually, none of these institutions will be able to solve those issues, particularly the political will have to come from the sovereign governments. So that will have to come through these formal arrangements like SAARC or SASEC or BIMSTEC or whatever you call it, that formal gathering. And in fact, I think most of these issues can be even bilateral. And once bilateral discussions become fruitful, then naturally it becomes a multilateral arrangement. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to cross-border, it's always between two boundaries, between two countries, and multilateral becomes only after that. So I think it's eventually the sovereign governments. So empowered institutions, I don't think you will ever have. It's not that easy to come to that point. That's a long way off. Look at the European Union. It's years and years of evolution, and I don't think we can take that out from the sovereign government for many, many years to come.
Okay. The next question is from Mr. Jalil. Mr. Jalil, the question the person says is, what has been Bangladesh's experience with, what issues have you come across in Bangladesh's experience with cross-border exchange trade so far, since you've already done some of that? What were the key issues that were there with those trades? Mr. Jalil. Sir, you have to unmute yourself.
Pardon me, if you repeat your questions, please.
Yeah, yes, sir. The questioner wants to know that given Bangladesh's experience already has some experience with cross-border trade, what were the key issues that were encountered during that?
Mr. Uluk, you know, Bangladesh experienced some issues like import of electricity from India. And then we have MU already signed with Nepal, and a tripatriate MU is at the final stage between India, Bhutan, and Bangladesh. And Bangladesh has been working with SAARC, BIMSTEC, BBIM, and also SASEC and D8 countries. So from our side, we have experienced that the key issues are, from my point of view, or from the Bangladesh side, key issues are some regulatory frameworks is needed, common framework, first of all. Then a transmission line, common transmission line construction or common grid code. Already we have developed within the SAFIR, we have worked for that grid code. A grid code, common grid code is necessary. And then a transaction system and the mechanism. These are the key issues what we have faced for CBET. And a market mechanism also very crucial. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sharing, if I can come to you, sir, given Bhutan's experience, and Bhutan has a lot of experience with cross-border, energy export. What were the issues that you faced with your projects and export of energy to India, for example? Mr. Sharing?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Alok. Bhutan has been having the interconnection almost more than 3 decades, and then the agreement states that the only surplus power could be exported to India. There was no aspects of the import being addressed. Now, when the firm powers in Bhutan are not adequate for the domestic power, the bilateral agreements were a little bit challenging to be interpreted, and therefore the present scenario that what we are trying to address is through the power exchange market. Now, this is where I have been repeatedly coming that even if when we see around the world power exchange market, power pool, these are some of the aspects where the sovereign issues doesn't come much into play. And then the economic colonization aspects, the sovereign aspects, the geopolitics aspects are being not compromised for that matter, or being not hindered. So I was saying that maybe we have to be strategically addressed. So this is our experiences, challenges that we have faced, Mr. Alok. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Mr. Sharing. I think we wanted to also ask Mr. Kumarasinghe, but I think he's had some connection issues, although he's going to try to rejoin. I think we've come to the end of this panel discussion right now, but please don't log out yet. I would like to request Ms. Monali Zia Hazra to give concluding remarks as well as vote of thanks. And Ms. Hazra is Regional Energy Manager and Clean Energy Specialist for USAID India. She has a postgraduate degree in environmental management, has more than 2 decades of experience, and has managed several USAID's clean energy programs. Before that, she led the Industry and Environment team at Center for Science and Environment. Ms. Hazra, over to you.
Thank you so much, Alok, and excellent discussion. I am kind of, recapping some of the good or highlights of the discussion today. I found some of the points which were put across by many of the panel members was very interesting. Some of the points which resonated with me was specifically, related to, as the region is moving towards more multilateral trade, there would be a need for institutions to look at various aspects, whether it is technical, operational, commercial, and so on and so forth. And the role of such institutions would be very critical in terms of bringing all these stakeholders together in a common platform to have, free discussions. While we definitely have institutions like BIMSTEC and SARC, as Priyanta was mentioning, these are very pretty high level and would be the one which would be driving political mandate or political consensus. There would be definitely need of specific institutions which would be focused, and I think that these points also emerged out of discussions from Dr. Subir Sen as well, that there is a need for institutions which would help and look at specific focus, which would help accelerate power trade in the region, which will bring efficiency, sustainability, and so on and so forth. Several challenges were highlighted by the speakers. Some of them included, bringing in a strong transmission interconnection, not only within the country, but also not only between the country, but also within the country. And then there are several, frameworks that need to be in place, which were highlighted by our Bangladesh speaker, including, dispute resolution mechanism, grid code, and so on and so forth. The relative importance of unbiased financing was also highlighted, which I found very interesting. The suggestions from, both Priyanta as well as a Bangladeshi speaker, that member countries could probably pay fees, and the fees could be determined based on the quantum of energy that is being traded. So that's interesting. And while the countries do pay the fees, the initial support, or there could be some support which can be leveraged from, multilateral and bilateral institutions such as ADB or World Bank. And USAID has been engaged and has been supporting, providing technical support to both SARC, BIMSTEC, as well as SAFIR. So similar sort of mechanism could be used to provide support to such new institutions. Again, when it came to, talking about whether new institutions is required or not, many of the panel members highlighted that there are already certain regional institutions such as SAFIR came up several times. But again, it was also pointed out that SAFIR may be good in terms of driving a consensus on cross-border power trade, and maybe also look at certain elements, but there may be a need for specific bodies or institutions looking at transmissions or system operation or so on and so forth. So those were definitely very interesting, and especially also the point made by a Sri Lankan speaker who talked about market mechanisms and how, institutions can play an important role towards this. So overall, I think these were excellent points which came across, and as a part of the SARI program, we are focused on supporting such frameworks and institutions and regional institutions to support cross-border power trade. It's aligned with our mandate, not only as a part of SARI program, but also as a part of USAID's newly launched South Asia Regional Energy Partnership. We hope to continue such discussions where we get excellent points and discussion points from the participants, which we can then take forward towards the implementations. So thank you so much for to all our panel members. I'm kind of transitioning into my vote of thanks now. So I wanted to take this opportunity to thank all our speakers. I really found the discussions engaging, and I do think the audience did too, as we see from the number of questions which were posted. So many thanks to all our speakers for sparing time, for joining us. We really value your time as well as your opinion and comments and feedback. I would also like to thank all our panel members, all our participants who took off time to join for this third edition of USAID SARI Powerline webinar. So this is our third edition. Please tune up for the fourth one, which would happen in the sometime in January, and we are planning to look at around what the region needs to do in terms of clean energy transition. So please do definitely join up. I'd like to thank the Powerline team, Mr. Barara, for an excellent moderation as always, and your team and the team, Powerline team, for setting it up. The SARI team, the leadership of Mr. Pankaj Batra, Dr. Parikh, Kirit Parikh, as well as Jyoti Parikh for their leadership, and overall the partnership which we have with USAID. And thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today. Hope to see you back again in January, and have a great year. So with that, I'll finish and pass it back to you, Alok.
And I will simply thank you, Ms. Zia Hazra, for giving us the opportunity. And the participants, we hope to see you next month, and a very happy new year as well in advance. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Same to
Thank you.
all
Thank
of
you.
too.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.